Welcome to Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff, where we interview newsmakers, storytellers, and all-around interesting people. Sit back, relax, unless you're driving, and enjoy the show. Here's Jackson.
Bop it. Pull it. Pull it. Twist it. Twist it.
Hello. I am Jackson Huff. This is Not in a Huff, and if those sounds mean anything to you, you're in for an amazing show today. I am interviewing Dan Klitsner, who is the inventor of the Bop It. Those sounds, you're going to hear a lot of them throughout this interview, but it just brings me back to my childhood, the nostalgia behind the Bop It, all the different ones that have been created in the last 25 years. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with Dan. He takes us through the beginning and how this whole project, the whole Bop It, started out as a channel changer, how it changed and evolved from that, the process of pitching it to people and finding the exact right person, the amazingness that has been the Bop It craze in the last 25 years and what it was like living through that, creating something that became such a staple in an American toy culture. He's also going to talk, and I want to make sure just to emphasize to listen towards the end, because he's going to talk about the one-button Bop It that he's created for his own organization, Bop It For Good. It's one button, but you're going to hear that it's not as easy as it seems, and there's a lot of really cool things, a lot of Easter eggs in it, between different voices that helped create Bop It, between a charitable organization that he is donating one for everyone that he sells. So just an amazing thing there. I want you to make sure that you listen towards the end, where he's going to talk all about that and how you can pick that up. Great gift for the holiday season that's coming up, that we're kind of in right now. This is coming out right in the middle between Thanksgiving and Christmas 2022, so definitely something to put on your list. And the really cool thing is that it'll maybe introduce the next generation to Bop It, but more so, it's going to be a great thing for somebody who grew up on it, because with that one button, you can, so many different modes, play it with your family, pass it around, put it on your desk, and just hit it once for a nice old Bop It insult. I don't want to be too much of a commercial with that. This is such an amazing conversation, a little longer than some of the other podcasts, because, there's nothing that could be cut out. I really enjoyed speaking with him. Just the process of literally creating one of the modern classics in toys. So if you at all know what a Bop It is, you're gonna really enjoy listening to Dan. He's an engaging guy. Never heard of it. I think you're gonna learn a lot about just inventing something amazing, that process, and I think it's gonna make you want to go out and get that Bop It, that one button Bop It. So without further ado, here is Dan Klitsner. I'm here today with Dan Klitsner. Mr. Klitsner, how are you?
I'm good, Jackson. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it very much. If you would, just introduce yourself.
I, Dan Klitsner, and I'm an industrial designer and have created a lot of games, toys, and products. Some people know a game called Bop It, which is one of my most well-known, but I have a lot of others as well. And I'm from the Bay Area near San Francisco. And the rest we will unveil as we go.
We certainly will. And I obviously you've already brought up the big guns, the Bop It. I want to first kind of go well before that mid 90s, just I guess explosion, and talk about what started your passion for inventing, and then I guess more specifically inventing in the toy world.
Well, the passion is a great way to to ask. I mean, because I am extremely passionate about it still after doing it for over 30 years. And I'm not quite sure why. It's just always been that way. I love the idea of coming up with new ideas and making them into something that people will play with, and sort of always searching for the thing that people are going to want to play again. Like there's sort of a challenge for myself as well. I think it's fueled by the memories of kind of golden moments of those games with family or friends where I just, looking back, think that was a moment. I want to create, honestly, that's my goal, is to create more of those moments for myself, my friends, and for all the millions of people that have said they love some of the moments that have been created from my games.
I love that. That's really cool for sure. And I wonder, I don't know all of your inventions. We're going to get a little bit into it later, other things other than Bop It. But if you've invented in the adult world, or if you haven't, and I guess the Bop It, heck, adults probably have just as much fun with that. But I just wonder, what do you think is harder to invent for? Do you think it's harder to invent a gadget for an adult or invent it for a kid? I feel like kids, if it doesn't immediately resonate with them, they just throw it out of the toy box and go to something new. So what's harder, you think?
Well, I think it's much harder to invent games and toys, new games, because they're new. You're creating a new experience. That is what you're creating. Think about it this way. So I started out as an industrial. I said I am an industrial designer, but I started out not knowing what I really wanted to do. I just knew I liked to draw a lot, create a lot of different ideas, and I went to engineering school first at UC Davis, and really was uncomfortable, didn't like it. I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. I just didn't know what that was. And when I found Art Center, it's a college in Pasadena, which my dad had sent away for a catalog. He knew I was unhappy in college. And I opened this thing up and saw what industrial design was. I saw all these different gadgets and toasters and who knows what, like shovels and a razor, like products, like things that were like industrial design products that were really cool looking, or cars. And I didn't even think about it before. And I just knew immediately, that's what I want to do. I want to design stuff. And the thing is about designing stuff is it's actually mostly problem solving. Like you are solving a problem, you're making something better. And it's kind of like, most people have ideas about that, right? And sometime in your life, most people listening will say, oh, I have this idea for improving, my chair leg. I don't know. It's not a great idea, but who knows, or a better way to open or close something, or like usually a problem they're having. And they go, I know, I have a solution for that. This is my slogan is, most people try to solve problems. Toy inventors create them.
Yeah, I like that.
So really, that's what your job is. You're trying to create a problem for someone else to solve, which is, right? You're creating challenges, and not so much for toys. A lot of toys are role play things that are, but they still are kind of in that way. What makes it a toy? It's a toy because you're kind of creating a little more whimsical view of something. You're not really just there to solve a problem. You're there to, like I say, simplest way, create a problem, create a challenge. That's what, Bop It certainly is, or many games or puzzles are a challenge. Literally, you're designing the challenge, someone else solves it. So that there means it's harder to do that than it is to, I think solving problems is supernatural human behavior. Creating new experiences is different, and it is hard.
That answer is definitely powerful. If people have listened to some of the other episodes, I've interviewed inventors before, and they always go back to exactly what you said, that if you are a good inventor, you are solving a problem that people have. If you're just going out there trying to invent something just for the sake of it, then it doesn't go so well. If you're solving a problem, there's where you're actually getting something. Unless you're a toy inventor, which makes a ton of sense, that it is creating a problem. So I like that. That's really cool for sure. I want to kind of talk about. Let's get to the big topic, and I guess the biggest problem that you created, and that was in 1997 with the Bop It. Obviously I want it kind of the beginning of Bop It. How did you come up with the idea? How did that process work? And just, I don't necessarily want to constrain you to one thing. Just run wild with the beginning of Bop It, if you would.
Well, it's a great lead in. I've been interviewed quite a bit about it, but I always have some new perspective on it. As the more looking back on something, how it changes the further away you get from it.
Oh,
so
sure.
The story changes. But I was trying to solve a problem before creating Bop It. And the problem was, one of my clients as an industrial designer was a company that made it's called Memorex, which was known for audio tapes, but they were starting to get into consumer electronics. And they hired me as a freelance designer to basically design remote controls, that TV remotes that would come, that you bought separate from your TV. At that time, there used to be only a remote that came with your TV that worked only with that TV. And if people remember, at some point there was this idea of a universal remote that could work on any TV. So they had wanted me, somehow found me through different, references, and I was there designing a remote for them, or more ergonomic. Industrial designers make things that feel good in your hand. They should look cool, all this stuff. But I had this philosophy called how people say think outside the box. It means, what does that mean? It means do something unexpected, think way outside the box. I kind of had a philosophy called think inside the box. And think inside the box is a philosophy of, if you're going to be designing something anyway, like a handheld TV remote, and it's going in a box and people are buying that thing, what else can it be besides that single function of it only lives, its only use of materials was to enable you to change a channel on a TV? To me, it's a way of saying, what else could it do besides that? And one thing a TV remote I thought could do was, it could sit on your coffee table and be a lot more intriguing than a little thing that rolls around. And like, it's usually they're designed just to be in your hand. And, we were doing things like making the buttons bigger for ergonomic reasons and stuff that sort of make it a better remote, solve that problem, but not about, so I started going this jag about them being kind of really interesting objects that would look not even like a remote control, that would sit on your coffee table and be like a sculptural thing, or hang off the side of it. Like, I have all these sketches of things that if this was a video, I'd show you. But anyway, that started me on this think inside the box for a remote. I showed them to Memorex. They didn't like, no, just design the damn remote. Like, what are you talking about? We just want a remote control. So they were not ready for that. And at the same time, I had a client that was a toy, and I'd been starting to create toys for companies and starting to pitch them an idea. So I thought, what about for the toy world? Would there be a universal remote for kids that was more fun and more playful and could be more, if you're buying a remote, than just the remote? And one of the ideas coincided with, like, I had themed remotes that were a couch potato, a channel surfer, a strange looking skeleton where the bones were the buttons, like playful toys that also were remote. And I also had this concept called watch the kid, not the toy. It was something an old toy executive guy had told me once, which was, commercials are about watching what the kid's doing, not about the product, really. It's what does the toy make the kid do? So I was fixated on this. And so if you can imagine, people ask this question. Well, the train of thought was, what else can a remote be besides a remote? And a remote control, they're watching TV, but can it be more of a toy? And then what about it not being a thing with buttons? Could it be some other thing? And this idea came to me of this thing called the channel bopper, which was, for you and I, if you may have seen, this is this little foam core model. It's basically, I'm holding up a piece of foam core with, it's like a hammer, but there's a rubber ball on each end of the head of the hammer, like a two-sided hammer with a twist knob in the middle and a pull knob on the bottom. So the only controls this channel bopper needed was basically, channel up was you bopped on the table, you bopped it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you wanted to go down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you would bop the other direction. This was of course before cable, when there were 4,000 channels. But at the time, that seemed like, why do you need buttons? Just, I don't like this channel. Bop, 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 boop. Let me go backwards. Bop, 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 bop. The other way, like a great, that made the kid more animated. That meant you would watch the kid, not the toy. It created a whole different action. The volume was a twist knob. So you twist it up for volume up, down for volume down. So, and then on off was a pull. So bop, twist, and pull were simply channel change, volume, on off. So I thought this was the coolest thing I ever came up with. I started to pitch it to toy companies and remote control companies, and nobody like Memorex said no. And the remote control idea did get sold to a toy company. In fact, one of my ideas was called Remotes by the Slice, and it was a pizza-shaped remote control because I thought it was funny. Like a kid would leave, a slice of pizza on their coffee table, and the parents would go, "Hey, pick up that piece of pizza." But instead, like, it's my remote control, And so I thought that was pretty funny. So as you can see, the pepperoni is like the volume, and so everything on top of the pizza, the slice of pizza, the mushroom is mute. Like it was funny. And there was a couch potato that looked like a potato that, had remotes on it. So these were silly remotes. They did that. They didn't want to do the channel bopper because it was too complicated. They go, no, we just want to do these silly looking remotes. So they turned it down. I kept pitching it to lots of companies. And as you can kind of see it coming was the bop, twist, pull. But at the time I was like, it's a remote control. It's a remote control. It's a remote control. And pitched it to a lot of people who go, yeah, I get it. But, maybe it's not a remote. Maybe it's just a noisemaker. Maybe it's something else. And I'm, of course, what are you talking about? The whole concept is it's a TV remote, right? I was trying to solve the problem. It's a TV remote. It changes channels. How could you possibly say maybe it's not a TV remote? Then it wouldn't be a product anymore. And so that I think is, we all know in hindsight, like, yeah, but so evolution of thinking, that sat in my mind, but it wasn't actually, I didn't do anything with it. I was like, well, I don't know what it is. It's so obvious to everyone. Inventions are so obvious looking backwards, but you're sitting there and that, the only thing I did right was you don't say no to that. You kind of, okay, whatever, you're stupid. You said something that doesn't make sense, but you listen and you what I call relentless listening. You actually do need to make sure to absorb. So I absorbed this. A few months later, another toy company called asking if I had ideas for handheld electronic games with LCDs in them, because Tiger Electronics had a lot of games that were not success. They were slumping. They'd run their course. And so companies call various toy inventors who they know and say, what do you got for a new electronic handheld LCD game? And after trying to put an LCD in the Bop It, the channel bopper said, maybe this thing that was a TV remote is actually a game. I'll put a screen in it because games have screens. Well, that didn't, kind of tested it out. You can't really see what you're doing on the screen while you're bopping. And then I tried to kind of say, what if the latest handheld LCD electronic game has no LCD? Well, I might as well try, So that's when I dropped the screen. And all I thought was, well, then it would be like Simon, the game that people know, which is memory, right? Where Simon was a game where it goes red, blue, green, yellow, red, blue, green, yellow, yellow, red, blue, green, yellow, yellow, red. So you have to remember the sequence. So I tried this hammer-shaped game, tried to make it into a Simon-like memory game. And it was actually kind of hard with lights and things like, it was already hard enough to play Simon, but now to remember the gestures as well and the twist, it was hard and kind of had been done before. And then I started to, maybe it has music and add some rhythm. Like these are just things you try when you say, how'd you come up with it? And the biggest change was really sort of realizing as I started to add beats and rhythm to it that, okay, maybe it's just 4 things in a row. Twist, twist, but, and at the time it was just sounds. There wasn't really a voice telling you what to do. It was just lights that were coming on and sound effects. So I think the jump from there was, well, if I don't use lights, because lights were actually too expensive. It got costly. I was sort of looking at it and pitching it. And people go, oh, there's something there. So while you're pitching. But I said, well, if the sounds sounded like the thing, that might mean you'd know what it was without having to use lights. So for the twist to sound like a twist sound, which is what Bop It has. If you listen to it, the sound of the twist, the sound of the pull, they sound like what they look like, which is another easy to see in hindsight thing. So the bop sounded like a boink, So once the idea of making things sound like what they look like, then all of a sudden I was like, oh, there's something here because I can tell it. I know what to do without seeing it. I know I don't have to see the light go on for me to know what to do. which is a big jump, right? So if this if this just had 5 buttons on it or 4 buttons, you can't really make them sound different. But once you have an object that every control looks different, that was really the genesis of Bop It, was how to make a thing that sounded like what it looked like to tell you what to do. Then the next leap was really, it still seemed more complicated with 4 things in a row, 3 things, 2 things didn't sound right. And the big thing was, well, is it just one? What if it just said one thing in a row? So I ask you, if you came up with that, would you ever think you get it wrong if you said, I want to create a game where it just tells you to do one thing in a row?
No, definitely wouldn't think I would get it wrong.
Right?
Right.
Who would ever think? So I still kind of wonder, why did I not just say, nah? But I was like, I don't know, maybe if I sped it up, maybe. These are things when you look back in hindsight, you go, I don't know why I thought of one thing in a row. It was more that the other things weren't working. And I figured might as well try it. So that part was, again, a non-obvious leap. And at that point, it was, I don't know why, I was like, well, maybe it just tells you what to do. It tells you to bop it. And that the sound effect became what it sounded like when you hit it. I think that's what it was. I tried it where it just made a sound, which is a mode in Bop It today where it does a sound. But I don't know what got into me. It was like, I was going, what's the absolute simplest thing this could do? It could tell you what to do and you do it. I don't know if it'll be fun. I don't know if it'll be a game. So I sort of mocked it up. And I was like, you know what? As it gets faster, it's actually kind of hard to keep track. And that was really the biggest epiphany was, will you get it wrong? I don't know. It feels like there's something here. So all those things are just hunches with a little bit of trial and error. But that's probably the longest I've ever taken to dissect the intricate process that my brain was going through that I didn't know at the time was forming itself toward this game.
Yeah, well, I love it. I'm glad that you kind of walked us through your brain with it. I want to know 2 things from that. One, how long was this process? From it being a channel surfer to being what it turned into. How long was that process? And then also, which this may be part of kind of your pitch story, but you already said, I don't know whether this would have been something that anybody wants. Is this easy? Is this hard? When you did finally present it to people, were you thinking, yeah, this is a great thing? Or were you like, is this anything? Do you like this? What was it like at that point?
Yeah, the first part of that is it probably took about a year from the time I was designing and sold. That's the other funny thing. I sold this idea of crazy remotes to a company. So why did I hold on to the hammer? I didn't just put it in a box and go, all right, I sold that idea, on to the next idea. I just felt there was something more to that. So it was about a year, and if not for the phone call, and this was not the company that ended up doing Bop It was Parker Brothers, not Tiger. Tiger was the company that called about maybe 3 or 6 months later to say, hey, do you have any ideas for handheld electronic LCD games? If they had never called, it's also possible I never would have come up with this idea, because I never would have thought, how do I turn this TV remote into a game? So that took a while to gestate. And in that time, I think I had been pitching the TV remote to several other companies. Like I probably had anywhere about 20 to 30 ideas at any time when I would meet with companies and pitch them on my best, ones, depending on who they were. So over that year, I was pitching this TV remote idea quite a bit until someone called and said, what if it's not a TV remote? So when people think about invention, I think it's about all those what ifs and just staying open to what something might be. Don't force it, And so that was about a year. And then, what happened? How did I think if people would like it or not? Once I kind of made a game of it, I didn't really know. I liked a lot of things I came up with, but I thought were, you in your head might be a different vision than what other people see or experience. So I pitched once I had the idea for this game, I pitched it to maybe 6 or 7 companies before Parker Brothers. And a lot of people liked it. One interesting thing is a company called Cap Toys, which did like the spinning lollipops, and they did a bunch of things back in the 90s. the guy, John Osher was his name, really, he went on to make the first electric toothbrush as well, like really the spinning toothbrush. He was really smart, and he actually, I remember him picking it up going, I love this. This is great. I love this. Like he really saw it. He goes, but you know what? We're not the right company for this. You need to do this with a game company. We're like a novelty company. It was really nice that he kind of was like, but his reaction, I was like, wow, this guy, I really respect his opinion. And he thinks this thing is really cool, you know? So little things like that add up when I stress to people, you know, a lot of inventing is the pitching. And when you're pitching, it's how you pitch and how you receive feedback, or just watch people's reaction, watch their face. You know, this is your moment to get an experienced person to react to your idea. And if it doesn't work the next time, you adjust a little, you adjust your pitch. So I think seeing what people lit up to and not is a big part of inventing. You know, most ideas are probably pitched several times before they succeed. So in a way, you're like, I've been rejected 9 times. I'm so excited. I must be getting close. You know, rather than this idea is no good. You're like, well, statistically, it means you're getting close, or you could be. So that's a trick to the thinking of getting rejected. So after several rejections, I had an opportunity to meet with someone I really respected from Parker Brothers, who I'd met a couple of times. I had sold them a few games already. And so this was at a good point in my career where I had just started really a few years into it, but people knew I had good stuff, you know, so they would start sending their more higher executives to sort of go, check out what Dan's got. So this guy called and said, you know, I'd never met with him really in person, this guy, Bill Dorman, but he said, I'm going to LA. I'm in California. He says, I'm flying out from the East Coast. I just let you know in case you'd like to meet. I can't make it up to San Francisco, but if you'd like to meet, and I hate to ask you to come down. I said, yes, I will. So I luckily, because I really thought he had the eye that could get new ideas. And it wasn't just Bop It. I had 6 or 7 other really cool things at the time. So I went down ahead of time, set up my hotel room. I found out where he was staying. Like I just had this real mystical hunch about this meeting. And I'd never done this before, where I actually flew somewhere else to meet someone. They always came to my office. And so I had it all set up. And just at that point in the meeting where he saw Bop It, the coolest thing was he looked at it. He was really thoughtful. He liked it. And he said, but, you know, we're just not doing games like this at Parker Brothers. And I thought it was like the guy, John Usher, the other guy. And he goes, but we should be. But we should be. Now that's, right? What if that guy said, we're just not doing games like this at Parker Brothers? Can you control that? It's like, well, I like to say, I think you can. But I waited till I had the right guy. I knew this was a guy with vision, and I had a hunch he was the right guy. And I like to say the right guy, the right time, the right product, the right company, the right meeting, like, if you work at it, you can sort of control what to get right before you go in. And I had to have learned from previous meetings that weren't the right meeting. So this is, again, a lot of detail that I think, with the luxury of looking back, can maybe help you if you're pitching ideas to someone, if you're an inventor, or just you have meetings at your business or whatever it is. Just kind of keep in mind that process to get to the right point takes a lot of thinking.
Yeah. No, in my world, in what I do for a living, it's the same thing. That's what we always say. Are we talking to the right person? It doesn't matter what we're saying. If we're saying to the wrong person, nothing matters. So I hear you there. The easy question is to ask, did you think that this is going to turn into what it was? Of course you probably did. No one knows. So what I would rather ask you is, once it did take off, once it became the sensation, the juggernaut that it did, what was that like? How did you feel about, something that you remember the starting from, you remember that channel remote and what it eventually turned into? What was that feeling like?
Well, first of all, I did have a tingling about it. That was like, because I'd seen enough, and I'd done games. Everyone thinks their game is the best thing in the world. I mean, you don't do it if you don't fall in love with your own ideas.
Right.
So I did, but I also had heard that, most games only last a year or 2 years or don't last at all. there was just something once I saw it in the showroom, finished with once it had, and I'd seen it in progress, and I got a bit of a chill like the first time I saw it presented in front. I'd seen it before, but when it showed and I could see people's reaction, and it was so iconic and so simple. Luckily, it stayed extremely simple, and I was like, everyone says, yeah, it might get a good 3 years, and I remember inside thinking, what are they talking about? This has got like evergreen potential. And so can't say I predicted it, but I did have a real tingly feeling like this is special. This is a special one. Once it was at that stage, I wouldn't have said I thought that at all when it was still an initial idea. It was just one of many fun ideas that I had. So yeah, I did feel, but then what it was like when it started to come true was honestly just like you can't really believe, like, is this really happening? That they say it's taking off. They say it's doing well. And then, again, you're still excited, but then starting to see like the commercial and hearing about it and hearing people calling me and then people started to put it in the paper. There was it wasn't like the biggest hit of the year at all. It was just sort of getting a groundswell. And that was what probably saved it. It wasn't like the big surge and then it's out of style the next year. It just had enough love that I could tell that it was going to last a second year for sure. And the moment that I got most excited was one of the people, I think it was Bill, the guy who I pitched it to. He's sort of like executive marketer, but he's not the one that is like his level wasn't the one that kind of got up and gave I don't know, whoever the executive VP was. They quoted this guy. He called and said, so you might want to know that the sales numbers, this might have been in January after it had started to sell over the holidays. He said he got up there and he talked about the things that were doing well for us in our line, and Bop It was sort of the highlight of the season last year. I mean, they have Monopoly, they have Risk and Connect Four and Hungry Hippos, whatever. They have like all the best games. So for it to be Hasbro, basically Parker Brothers is part of Hasbro, that was a big deal to have the game with the right company. But to have, so the quote was, "We are witnessing the birth of a new brand." He goes, he just got up in front of the whole company and said, "We're witnessing the birth of a new brand." So as much as I was excited, when I heard that, I sort of stunned me. And I remember driving home that day, waiting to tell my wife what I had just heard. And I started screaming in the car, like just this. I still was tempered, like this may not happen because you don't want to get your hopes up. But it was just like, I grew up playing Parker Brothers games. And I remember as a little kid, just how happy I was playing Mousetrap or this and seeing the logo on the box. Like I kind of associated it with this means it's a really special game and I have these great memories. So to think, the first thought I had was, I had just created something that, if I'm hearing right, other little kids are going to play and it's going to be a special memory for them. And I made one of those games that I used to, from that, like that concept. So when I said in the beginning of this conversation, what excites me, it's the passion for having loved games growing up and wanting to sort of figure out the new way for kids to play and connect and have memories. And so it was that moment that I was like, whoa, I think that just happened. And I was just elated, and it's been, and never predicted it would actually really last now 25 years. This is unprecedented because there's very few new evergreen games that get created. And I think it might be one of the only ones in the last 25 years for Hasbro.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess the question I would be too, when it comes to inventing things, pitching things, selling ideas to companies, what does that look like when it comes to evergreen parts? Obviously I don't at all want to get into, the financial side, but when they talked about, we've created a new brand, is it something like Go Hasbro and they're the ones that kind of are the only ones that benefit now that they bought your idea? Or is it something that you were able to stay invested in too?
Oh, the whole game of toy inventing, different than design. Industrial design, generally, you're hired as a consultant to design. I designed, 15 different products for Discovery Toys before I really got into toy inventing. That's sort of where I heard to kind of bridge the industrial design I had clients, and one of them was Discovery Toys. I designed a lot of really fun products that are still around today. And I was very inventive with them, but in a business model, when you're paid up front, you are generally paid and you're a consultant, and then that's it. In toy inventing, you're pitching your IP, your original ideas. And in general, the business model is you strike out 1,000 times, but if they buy one and it happens to succeed, you get a royalty on it. Okay. So I licensed the game of Bop It to Hasbro, and they've been a partner. Basically, they're the manufacturer, they're the licensee of my game, and that still is the case today. So it's been very, important to me to be able to sustain my business and do other things, was to have had a hit that could help fund all the other mistakes that I made.
Yeah. Well, I like to hear that. I like to hear that for sure. We talked so much about Bop It. We even went into how it was created, and I feel like that's a really easy thing for people to understand that knows Bop It. If somebody's listening, they are, living under a rock, and they're wondering, Bop who? What the heck are we talking about? Bop what? To tell us a little bit, explain to us in your words what a Bop It is. And then I know you've got some sounds to kind of jog our memory too. So please do that.
I think what made Bop successful is if you first say, what's the name of the game? Bop It. How do you play? Bop It. What are the instructions? Bop It. Like literally, it says right on the front of it. It's a strange looking object that says Bop It right on the part that you bop. So it couldn't be simpler. That is why, one of the reasons, it's just there are no instructions. It's do what it says. It commands, you obey. So let me play. I'm holding up, for those not seeing, of course, the first one, which was the pull, twist, bop. And it's got a pull knob on one end, a twist knob on the other, and a bop in the middle. So here's what it sounds like.
Bop it. Pull it. Pull it. Twist it. Twist it. Pull it.
So this is the first one. It simply told you to bop it, twist it, pull it. You heard the sounds. You could tell when it said twist it. You heard the twist sounds. Those sounds are the bop, twist, and pull sounds. So it tells you what to do. When you do it successfully, it plays that sound. If you don't do it successfully, you hear that scream. And then you hear some funny sounds. Those are because we couldn't afford to put even audio that told you your score. It basically used the cymbal sound, pop, pop, pop. You heard that sound, right? 5 pops. That meant 5 points. If you got 10 points, you would hear the twist sound. Meant it was like you had to figure out talk about causing a problem or creating a problem. You had to figure out, how is this telling you my score? So it would be like twist, pop, pop, pop meant 13. So it was people started to figure out, what is this sound? And then that was made it sort of cool. So that was it. Then as it evolved, it turned into Bop It Extreme, which was, again, once it was successful and they called me and said, what do we do next? I was very involved in where to take Bop It, and the 25 different Bop Its over the last 25 years. I've created many, many variations on Bop It that are all a lot of fun.
Bop,
so
one-on-one.
This is when we added a lot of voice, this mode here. Let's see.
Fox Bop, solo. Pull it. Flick it. Spin it. Bop it. No. Score 6.
So you heard it makes a snarky comment. Now when you fail, it says, no. Score 6, and it tells you your score. Now if you fail again, let's see.
Oh boy.
So it still screams and says something. So this one's not being as talkative as we got later, where when you fail, it starts saying all sorts of things like we started to get much, much more intricate with the voices. And I'll go and I can show you more of that when we talk about the button. But that's kind of how it started to evolve. It started with just less, and then the extreme version, it started to talk to you, and most people remember that idea. Now it had a flick it and a spin it. And when it got very extreme, this is Bop Extreme, and your failing got more extreme of how it taunted you and told you, do it the same but better and things like that.
we already talked about, this is very nostalgic to people. They grew up playing it. I know people that still have Bop Its. We probably use them now as, I don't know, at parties. So maybe almost a drinking game at this point. So
Of course.
people use it for all kinds of things. And I just wonder how often you get people that say, this was a huge part of my childhood. This is really important to me. It doesn't, there's so many things that you wouldn't think would be, but I can absolutely see how a Bop It would be a really important thing to some people. We can get really, really deep with it if you want, but I feel like that would be powerful. So talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. That's, to sum it up, I call this bop culture instead of pop culture. It got so deep that it's kind of transcended a game because because of the music and the rhythms and the beats. It sort of became like nostalgic music that you had when you were a kid or a teenager. So it's got a really powerful feeling, and that's what got me started on what we're going to talk about, this Bop It For Good initiative and things. Was about a few years ago, I'd sort of, people say, what do you do? Or over the last maybe 10 years, but especially in the last few years, when they'd find out I'm an industrial designer, I've done toys, anything I would know, and you say a few things. When you say Bop It, they would go sort of berserk. And I was like, why are they that? I know it's a great game, but why are they that passionate about it? And it was something like you're saying about the nostalgia was so deep. And I think because of that music, because of the tactileness, the social, it's a handheld thing. You're passing around. That probably conjures up memories of being at a party, with a group of people, simplicity. So that's what kind of gave me the idea of, wow, I don't know, but it started to show up in spoofs on The Simpsons, on Saturday Night Live. It's been in several songs recently, and TikTok challenges, and it keeps happening more and more and more. So it's almost that it got baked into the culture. Bop culture has sort of started a whole new wave beyond the toy itself, and the invention is that nostalgic quirkiness and the fact that it is about just tell you to do something, you do it. So you can create a dance with it. You can create I can get almost anything, and believe me, I've tried. Like when people say, I got a great idea for you, I'm like, well, I don't mean to be arrogant or dismissive, but remember, I have been thinking of Bop It ideas for 25 years. Mm-hmm. And if you want to see my Dropbox of archived prototypes and ideas, it's pretty massive. So that's, to answer the question, like, do you ever want someone to come up with that? It's like, I'm sure people come up with things all the time that I maybe haven't thought of, but I'm going to guarantee you I've got a list of 100 I kind of want to get to first before I start working with someone on their idea for Bop It. So just to put that to bed, that's what it's like to kind of have a product that has so many possibilities. But that's also a way of saying why I think it's baked into culture is people have spoofed it, because it does give you, literally, people have thought of all these things and constantly spoofing it, which is why I think it's hilarious, and it's kind of beyond anything I could ever anticipate.
Yeah. And in kind of preparing for this interview, I kind of went down the TikTok rabbit hole of typing in Bop It and seeing people's stories with it. Some people obviously are just trying to do the best they can, but I asked you that question because there was some really powerful ones of people talking about, I'm a mom and have an autistic kid, and this really helps with, his stimming. I had people talk about in my childhood, I didn't have a great home life and my parents would be fighting, and it's something I could focus on to do, under the covers while everything else is going wrong. So I thought, dang, that is really powerful. So I just thought that was really, really cool.
Well, you helped me segue into the most powerful thing about this whole experience for me, which is honestly the first month that Bop It came out. I got a call from a TV station that was doing a story about, holiday gifts. It was like probably around this time of year, like November. And it had just come out kind of in the summer. And they had heard that a school for the blind was using this new game Bop It because they could play it, because it's audio, as we're doing now in this podcast. You can play it. And that was, as the whole story was, I took the lights out. I didn't know this is what it was going to lead to, but because you can feel the shapes and they sound like how they look and they look how they feel, right? The whole point is it was Braille without me realizing it. So I get to this newscaster. When I get there, there's these two girls playing, and they're laughing and they're passing the bop it back and forth. And the newscaster looks down at this one girl and says, "How is it for you playing this game without being able to see?" And the girl looks up at her and goes, "I'm not the one that's blind. She is."
Uh,
The other girl that's blind, and you can't tell because it's so fluid. And so here you have a game that not only could they laugh and play and bond. I don't know if these girls knew each other. They were, they just were there for it was that that became so powerful. I instantly thought, wow, so this kid is now making a friend because they can laugh and play and compete equally. Like you're competing with, that's the cool part, is why games bond us, is when a game is well designed, you can play a game of Uno with your grandma and either of you can win and it's fun. That's why you need games that are well designed. So here's a game that was popular that could be equally played by people with that vast difference. And so I heard a lot of stories about that, and that the observers of that couldn't tell who was blind also took away the stigma of, oh, that kid's different. And so it just that really got, so over the years I've tried to support organizations that are, with people for the blind and get them Bop-Its and things. But what I've started to do, this latest project is all about, called Bop It For Good, with my wife and I, is for the 25th anniversary. We are focusing on right now this special new Bop-It that benefits Lighthouse for the Blind, where when you buy it, we donate one to them. And when they either give it to students like that so they can connect with, there's a lot of things with Lighthouse for the Blind where it's not just for people that are blind, it's integrating, it's connecting, it's being self-reliant. So the idea that you get Bop-Its and you take them with friends and you can play with them is actually a really powerful device to have. But also then they can take, we're trying to raise their inventory so that if you buy one and we donate one, they can resell it in their store, which gives them like full profit. Nobody takes a cut. It's kind of the best way for a charity. It's like they get to, that when they sell it, they just keep all the money. So I kind of like that business model as a charitable way to give to this community that Bop-Its mean a lot to. And I'm just fortunate to find out about it and just say this is a simple thing to do. So that's what we're doing this holiday season. Is I've created this new game called the Bop It button, which is a one-button Bop-It, which has nothing except this button that looks like the center of the Bop-It. And it started out as a whole different idea, not as a game. And it's kind of the reverse of my first invention story.
I like that. I like that. And I want to ask you too, because we focus completely on the Bop-It. You've done so much other things. Some things other people I think would know too. What was it? Perplexus, Hyperdash, all kinds of other stuff that you've done. Just briefly run through some of the other products that you've created. And then also I thought it was interesting. I think you even talked about it on a TikTok, that this isn't even your highest selling product or something that you sold even more of. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it is. I sort of did a post the other day where people assume Bop-It's my most popular invention. I said, well, best selling, popular, interesting words. They're obviously, sometimes they're equating it to me. I don't sell them, right? I license the products to a toy company and they're the marketers. So the product that I did that post on was it was the first product I ever invented, called, I call it the Sand Claw. I think they called it the Sand Digger, if I look at the thing there. So it was this idea of wearing this thing on your hand. I had this idea where you could dig without, using your fingernails, like when you dig like a dog does in the sand. And that's how kids like to dig. And so I created this ergonomic one-piece little shovel that fit over your hand that let you dig like that. And it was the first thing I licensed. I didn't patent it. I heard that the toy company was going to help patent it. They didn't. No one was doing anything wrong. We just weren't no one quite knew what they were doing. I got royalties on it for about a year or so, and then it started to get knocked off. It got knocked off so fast and so much that the toy company said, I'm sorry, we can't compete anymore, and we have to just sort of let go the contract to it, because they couldn't even afford to make it for less than competitors. So I was pretty sad about that, except that years later, it's I see it more and more and more everywhere, all over the world. This different variations too. Like you can Google that. You look on Amazon, and there's like 40 different versions of it. All these companies, and I started to say, I feel well. It's without question, more of those have been sold than Bop It's. Even though Bop It sold like 30 million units, there's a product that's only $1 or $2, and it's been all over the world for 30 years. And it's, so I just, when I estimate how many companies are out there, I just think it blows away the amount of units. So it's my best selling invention, even though I'm not connected to it anymore by royalties or anything. I'm just super proud that the first thing I licensed had use, and that people have enjoyed it so much that they knocked it off, and that it's still selling. It's kind of like the greatest tribute is to create something that is still around decades later. So I'm very proud of that, and yeah, that's my best selling invention as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I like that, because I think that would surprise people for sure. We talked about just the juggernaut the Bop It is, but you've got something else that had maybe even surpassed it when it comes to units. We just talked about how I found that from you on the TikTok, but I know that you've kind of started a little bit more into social media, I think, for this 25th anniversary. Kind of talk a little bit about that. How have you enjoyed kind of really digging deep into the social media world?
Yeah, I had never hardly answered emails before the pandemic. I didn't know what any of this was. And I had a friend who sort of said, you should do a social media channel. I mean, it was a friend's son, actually. And so I kind of hired him. We paid him a little bit to kind of help sort of tell me what to do and what's a post, I mean, it's literally, I knew nothing. And I started to do it. I come from this family of actors. My parents were in theater, and I've always been kind of a ham. So I said, oh, this is kind of fun. You get to go on. But for me, it was about talking about the inventions and kind of maybe give people some tips or commiserate what it's like to have an idea and find out someone else is doing it, like silly things or tips about how I create. I just started to see that it could draw this community of people that, were like-minded, and I could teach a little bit and just have fun with Bop It, being 25 years old. So I started it, and that the one thing I think I enjoy most is having an idea for a fun video or a silly thing where I take the voice of Bop It and I make it say something it's really not supposed to say, and like all sorts of just comedy, and find out if people like it in about 10 minutes. Like after you post it, the instant thumbs up, thumbs down is so refreshing compared to waiting 2 years with your product idea. They're the same thing. They're ideation. You're inventing something that you want people to laugh and enjoy and share, just like a toy, and you get to find out about it instantly. And then, and so that's the main thing I love about it. And then, but the idea of sharing and asking opinions, then what do you think? Should this product be this or that? Hey, this product flopped. What would you do differently? I love this connection with consumer, with game players, with kids, with adults. I just think that's the positive part about social media, where you can just share ideas, and for someone who's coming up with ideas, I'm trying to give as much as I get. Like I'm happy to give all my opinions, whatever. And so if people want to share their ideas with me, that's sort of a great, it's not the ideas that are worth a lot, it's the doing. Meaning when people say, oh, you're getting free ideas, I go, oh, take any of them you want. Yeah. It's you go do all the work of getting an idea out there, and you'll see that the idea is great, but it's what you do with it. So I think that's been sort of what I'm using it for, is just having fun and maybe getting some fresh brainstorming.
I love that. Yeah. And obviously social media is great for that instant gratification and sometimes instant disappointment too. You just got to be able to take the good with the bad. And you're talking about ideas. That's a great segue into the final question I have before we get to the Bop It button. And that is, it's really easy to look back and see the world that Bop It has taken you on, the journey that it's taken you on, and say, this was the best ever. But do you feel yourself that this was the best idea that you've ever had? And if not, what was?
Whew, the best idea. I don't even know how to answer that. It's hard to separate the results from, purity of ideas. I think it's kind of a blur. I mean, I've honestly come up with 5,000 ideas, like numbered 1 through 5,000, of which are not just brief thoughts. They're deep months on some prototypes, mock-ups, iterations, And so how to say best it's tricky. Like from the very first thing we talked about, how do you get people to like something and have it sustainable and have them want to laugh and create memories that they play and talk about years later? That's maybe the best idea. Maybe there's clever ideas that I've come up with, or card games, things that I think are more. There's a game called Mind Block that I came out with Blue Orange. That's kind of like Rummy Cube, only it's so cool the way you can combine the numbers. Like I would say that to me, I thought, I know this isn't going to be as popular as a Bop It, but I thought it was one of my best new, fresh games that people enjoy. But they don't, that's sort of hard to separate from this. And I do think as a pure idea, Bop It is a real winner. Like it's so pure and simple. It's a reason why it's lasted. It's hard to not say that. Perplexus is an incredible, from an industrial designer point of view. That's with an amazing partner, Michael McGinnis, who really came up with the first idea for it. And I really helped co-create it into this beautiful sculptural sphere with the maze inside. And it's been going for over 20 years as well. I'd say from an industrial designer's perspective, that's the best overall product, because you can sit it on the table and it looks like sculpture as well as being something you can play with. So I'd say I'm maybe as prouder of that as a beautiful object from my initial idea of, think inside the box. As I said, think of what else can this thing be when it's not being played with. I think it does a great job of being a beautiful thing besides just being a game. Yeah, it's too hard of a question, but that's my answer.
Good answer. It's almost an impossible question, but I thought I'd throw it at you and see how you hit it back. I think that was a good answer for sure. So please do share with us more about the Bop It button.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit like, I don't want to compare myself in any way, but because I'm blanking, but like Paul McCartney said, I'm going to make sure that from now on, my song Yesterday is just for raising money for good causes. Like it's sort of like, that's sort of what I'm doing. I want to make a specific Bop It that's a philanthropic Bop It for good causes. And there's a lot of reasons why. That's really the what this has become is, I want to do something to give back. And it was also to celebrate. I wanted to celebrate the 25th year. It's been a huge thing for me, but finding out how big Bop It was for all this nostalgia for everyone, I said, what can I do to properly do this right? And to thank the hundreds of people. It wasn't just me. I had the idea. I worked with all these amazing people. How do I thank them for changing my life and for helping bring this great product in the world? From the marketers, the toy executives, the designers, the sound engineer, it's like a movie when you see all those names in the credit. So what I did was that was my goal. How can I create something to thank people, to celebrate the fans, give the fans something that's special, that lets them know I appreciate them, and do it for a good cause. Those were my goals. And it ended up that I had this idea of a one button Bop It, more like a fun sound maker. So here's an example. What do you mean? A Bop It with one button? People go, how could that be hard? Well, so here's
Bop It! Yo! Did anyone see you doing that? Score! 150!
So, sorry, this is at an advanced level. It's really, the score was 1 in that particular instance. I think this is what happens when you press a one button Bop It.
Bop It! Yo! Fail-tastic, my man.
Right? You push it, it tells you a fail phrase, and it's kind of like your daily insult. Right?
Hate the player, not the game.
So I took my favorite insults from the last 25 years, put them into a one button Bop It, and I literally was just going to do that. Then I thought, maybe this could be a game without any knob, twist, or pull. Because when I first created Bop It, I actually had the command, don't bop it, don't twist it, don't pull it, as part of the instructions, and we took it out. You didn't need it. And so I kind of thought, in a way of paying homage to this 25 years, what if this was the Bop It where I put it in? And it's because it's only one button, so that the commands are Bop It, don't bop it, do bop it, do not bop it. And it doesn't matter how long between the words do and bop, or do not, or don't and bop it. Like the command's not done until it says bop it, one way or the other. So I am really trying to annoy people with this marathon game. So let's just play it for a second. You'll see what it sounds like. Oh, I'll mention one more thing. And I wanted to include a bunch of people's voices as thank yous to them for being part of Bop It, or fans who I found on TikTok who were super fans, or my dad who got me into industrial design. So when you hear these voices, this was an experiment to say, can I honor a bunch of people with a Bop It? And is it entertaining and fun to hear multiple voices? And I didn't know and the first time I heard this, I was pretty excited. So here it is.
Bop it. Bop it. Don't bop it. Don't.
This is the annoying part. It's going to make, this just happened to catch this early on. It usually takes a while. So you have to wait. Remember what it said? It said do or
Bop
don't.
it. Bop it. Bop it. Bop it. Don't bop it. Oh, dude. Don't bop it. Score 157.
So I moved this up to an advanced level. So you hear, and when you first start, it doesn't really get tricky with you. All those voices aren't in it. And as you play it, the longer you bop, the more voices you unlock. If you're not paying attention and you say, did he say don't or do at the beginning of that pause? You're right. So you really have to be, so this is a game of focus. So try one more.
Bop it, bop it, bop it, bop it. Don't bop it.
What do you think of all those voices and craziness, right? It's like you've never heard anything quite like it.
Yeah, I think that it makes it, it adds to the difficulty, because I feel like you start getting used to one sound, one voice, and kind of focusing on that to be able to do it. And then to have another voice just, I think adds it to be a little bit more, a little more stressful, a little more difficult.
Yeah, it's the voices and the variety of thinking, oh, it's one button. How hard could it be? But do and don't and do not and waiting. It's not hard if you focus. The point is you can beat this button, but it will take you 1 hour. So to beat the button, you have to do that totally focused for an hour. If you beat it, you get a special message personally from me. That's like a pretty long message. And then you have the option of quitting because you've beaten the button, or continuing to try to set a world record. So when people ask in the future, what's your score? This game will probably never have a score that's not, like if someone's crazy enough to play it for 3 weeks in a row, it literally goes to 1 million. And it's like, oh no. It is. So I just kind of thought this, all bets are off. This is this crazy idea of a one button bop it, put all these voices in it, make these crazy commands. So this is sort of like it's like the game you kind of know, but there's never been a bop it like it. It's this simple one button. You sit it on your desk so it looks like your 90s nostalgia decor. Like it's got, even if it just sits there, it's cool. So it solves that problem for me of saying a cool thing that looks cool even when you're not bopping it. And the box itself, as you saw, has hand illustrations of every bop it I've created. It's got a nice note in there to all the people that worked on it. It's got the names of like 50 people that were instrumental, if you look on the inside there. And that's sincerely how I feel. Like it takes a lot, the luck and all that's fine that I was the instigator, but it took all this stuff to make it happen. And so that's it. And so you get this thing, you get it out of the box, you can play it. There's a game where you can pass this around. Imagine playing this and each person only gets to press it once and you have to pass it to the next person. Think how fast this game is if you're just listening. When it says don't bop it, you reverse directions. So it's like you can play all these games with it. And because it's only one button, I've made a chain for it as a special fundraiser. So you can ooh and ah at this. You may have seen it in my social media. This is what I call the big bad Bop It chain. It's a big gold chain made of, Amazon's finest plastic gold, but it looks really real, right? And it's like a Flavor Flav kind of thing. And it's got this Bop It in the center and this cool. So these are going to be a special fundraising giveaway for one of the 20 gold chains that we're doing near the holidays for Lighthouse for the Blind. So all of this is, basically for charitable giving. So, but this is going to be really sought after. And we're actually doing a promotion with members only and Trapper Keeper. I Love the 90s promotion where I'm going to give they're putting these special packages together of, you get a members only jacket, a Bop It button, Trapper Keeper, all this stuff. And so I'm going to be doing a couple of these gold chains for that giveaway. So these chains are sort of like the special thing. And if people like them, maybe we'll make them. So you can wear it on your head with a strap. Like, this button is going to be this craziest thing. And all I can say is, if you had a Bop It, or had friends who had Bop Its or played Bop Its, you literally, I'm not even being a salesman here. I'm just giving you good advice. You will want one of these buttons on your desk to annoy people with, or to play and try to beat the record. And my personal challenge to anyone who played Bop It is, I'm literally like, can you beat the button? That's my personal challenge. I challenge you to spend an hour and beat this button. And what I'm also doing for the holidays is, between now and Christmas, basically, if you get one and beat it, I will personally call you.
Oh, I love it.
So we're hoping, I don't know how many people will actually do that, but we're going to do it. We might put a limit on it, but I don't know. A lot of people say they're going to do it, but if you have to spend 1 hour, and maybe you don't want me to call you, I don't know, but that is the challenge. We're saying, I believe so much in this product and raising money for this cause, that if you buy one and you beat it before Christmas, and you can play it, you can tell you beat it when you hold it down, then you will get a phone call from me. This is what happens, by the way. So the reason we know that is when you hold it down. So it's one button, but it's got modes you can activate by when you press and hold. So if I hold it down, it tells me my high score.
High score 231.
So now if I keep holding it down, it'll tell me high score, and then my all-time score, the total number of points I've gotten since I got the toy.
High score 231. All-time score 378.
This is a pretty new
Bop
one.
it, bop 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 it. Hello.
There's a lot of Easter eggs in this product that are like, oh, and we're giving few instructions because you're supposed to like figure it out, like the original Bop It, and the idea that you all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I just figured out how to make it say high score. What's this all-time score? Oh, and so when you get high enough scores in those categories, it starts to unlock other sounds in this button. So I literally spent a year creating this from all the sounds, just thinking, I just wanted to do something really special that fans, it was a way for me to celebrate it, but also to let fans know, I know this was special for Memories for You, and I want you to unlock these sounds that you had and have fun with it and compete a little bit with it. And it's all for a great cause. So that's my pitch on the Bop It button. And I just honestly think it's going to probably sell out because we're not making that many. We're doing this independently. So this is not Hasbro. This is me and my wife are funding this, creating this. And when it sells out, it sells out. So that's, it's available on boppitforgood.com. And when you're there, you can buy some other hats and things if you want, but mainly people are there for the button.
I love it. I love it for sure. And I want you to tell people how they can find you on social media. How, again, shout out, you just said it, but shout out again where people are going to find this button.
If you want the Bop It button, the only place you can get it right now is boppitforgood.com. It's our Shopify store. It'll probably be available on Amazon at some point, but not till later, and they might be sold out by the time it's available on Amazon. So we're saying go to boppitforgood.com and go get your Bop It button. And when you buy one, we donate one to Lighthouse for the Blind. You can find me it's Bop It Inventor on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter at Bop It Inventor. And you can, I'll probably be doing more stuff about this then, or maybe some lives about trying to get some celebrities that love Bop It to play this. And there's a lot we're hoping happens in the holidays. Really just saying that's, where this has evolved to over 25 years is Bop It for Good is this concept that I now call inventing good. Like inventing well is inventing good. And inventing good for me is how can I invent the most good with my creativity? And this, when you ask about Bop, it's like, okay, I'm gonna take on the challenge of coming up with something that can really use its popularity to hopefully engage people. The second part of this, the second chapter of what I hope to do with this next year, is start to get celebrity voices. The reason I focused so much on all those different voices in the Bop It button was it was a proof point for me that you could mix a lot of voices in one Bop It, and it was really entertaining to go, like, I know who all those voices are because I know them. But for other people, if you had a bunch of celebrities in there, and so my goal is to get celebrities to voice a Bop It for a great cause. And this was the proof. This Bop It becomes, like I said, this Bop It button is the philanthropic part of the Bop It line that I would love to continue with that over the next year.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So boppitforgood.com. Definitely a thing that I think people that are nostalgic for the Bop It will jump on. I know that you already know that. So it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks, Jackson. I don't have a problem speaking, as you can tell. So thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
And letting me share a lot of this. As I said, I am still passionate about what I do. And, just say thanks to everyone who's been on my social media, who shared their stories, for playing Bop It, for it is really an amazing feeling to know that over 200 million people have played this game, and I still love hearing about it. And I'm, so thanks for having me on.
So that was Dan Klitsner. What an amazing conversation. Sometimes I just kick myself when I'm having these conversations. I started this podcast several years ago, and just to think, did I think I was ever going to interview the guy who invented the Bop It? Definitely not, but man, am I glad that I did. What an amazing guy. What an amazing story, just coming up with such a product, presenting it and getting it on shelves, having that vision, not giving up on it, knowing that it's not a channel changer. It's got more to it. It is something else. He thought in the beginning that it was a channel changer, and he didn't want to get rid of that idea, and people were telling him, let's look at other things. He was willing to move on from that and create just the amazingness that the Bop It is now, and then to continue with that passion 25 years later and create the Bop It button that now helps Lighthouse for the Blind, has this amazing cause. He's got all these other amazing things where he's trying to create Bop Its with celebrities that use their voices and create them for their own charitable causes. Man, Dan is just an amazing guy. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope those who had a Bop It growing up or still have one, in their closet, hopefully you learned a lot today and really, really enjoyed, this conversation. Hopefully, if you've never heard of a Bop It, this has inspired you to go and grab one. Obviously, you can go to the, Target, Walmart, whatever your local big box store is, and get one of the Hasbro Bop Its. But I urge you to go check out that one button Bop It on his website, Bop It For Good. The link is going to be in the description on the show notes. Urge you to check that out. Grab that one for that charitable thing. Love it, and then go grab one of the originals too. But it was an amazing, amazing conversation. So thankful for his time. All of his information will be in the show notes. If this is your first time listening, thanks so much for listening. Over 100 other episodes, a lot of amazing other guests. Urge you to check those out. If you want to follow along with me, Not Enough Podcast on Instagram, JacksonF.com, Not Enough Podcast or JacksonF on Facebook. Thanks so much if you do subscribe there. 5-star review, that would be amazing on Spotify and on Apple. Leave that written review on Apple, even more amazing. But yeah, if you do nothing else, come back next week. Sure to be another great guest, but thanks so much for your time. Take it away. Bop it.
Bop it. Pull it. Pull it. Twist it. Twist it.
This has been Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff. Thank you for listening. Be sure to join us next time, where we will interview another amazing guest who is sure to make you laugh or make you think. Or, hey, maybe even both. But until then, keep being awesome.